All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Woodburn Accountants and Advisors April webinar series on how to analyze your China business. This is a webinar that is very much geared towards companies that already have structures in China and are looking to gain an understanding of how to evaluate their business in China, how to move forward, and ultimately how to grow in the market. We have two additional guest speakers that will be joining us this week. Tomorrow, we have the law firm Wang Jing, who are going to be joining us and letting us know if you do have an entity in China, what do you have to do in relation to the new foreign investment law in terms of updating your structure to make sure that it's in compliance. Don't worry, we are not in any delays. There's 4 years left to make those updates, but it's good to know what you have to do. So they're going to give us a checklist tomorrow. And then on Thursday, I've got Manfred Steinkellner coming on together with a general manager based in China who is going to be giving us some highlights about the relationship that senior managers have on the ground in China with their head offices, and sometimes how that can be a limitation to growth as well. If you guys are interested to see all of the topics we have in the next 5 days, go to our website, woodburnglobal.com/events, and sign up for the ones that you think might be appropriate for you. To start today's session, I know a lot of the names on here already today, probably about 50% of you I know. For those of you that I don't know, it would be wonderful to know what stage you are at. Like I said, these webinars this week are geared to companies that are already established in China. Are you a startup in China, meaning you've incorporated your company in the last 3 to 5 years, and you're looking to evaluate key trigger points on how to move forward? Or are you an experienced China hand and you're just on here to know and receive a couple of updates and ways to move your company forward? In the chat box, type away, startup in China or experienced China hand. This always gives me a lot of aid in how to move forward, and especially for the guest speakers that are going to be coming on, it helps them to know who's on board as well. Nobody's typed yet. I know it is Monday morning, guys, but do let me know who you are so I can have a bit of an understanding. For those of you that are not familiar to Woodburn's webinar series, we hold individual webinars based on our methodologies at the second week or the first week of every month. And then we hold a whole webinar series in the last week of every month. So you're hitting us up for our April webinar series on how to analyze your China business. We are here to educate you. Our goal is ultimately not to sell you anything, but bear with us. There's always going to be a page about what we do and who we are. All right. And if you guys are always interested, we'll also provide you contact information on how to reach out to us. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end. This is a 90-minute webinar. Hopefully the presentation will only last about 45 to 60 minutes, and then we'll have about 30 minutes left for Q&A. I plan to stay on here until all questions and comments have been answered, so don't hesitate, ask away. If you are too shy to ask, then just reach out and I'd be happy to have a one-to-one discussion with you. From a technical side point, we're just using Zoom. We're using Zoom meetings. If I get kicked off of the system, just know it does take about 1 minute for me to log off, log back in. Sometimes it's due to my Wi-Fi, so just bear with me. I will be coming on to finish today's presentation. If you guys are having issues with your connectivity with the Zoom, just know that we are recording today's session and it will be posted up on our YouTube channel, hopefully by the end of today, so that you'll have a link and you can watch it later on as well. All right. For those that don't know me, my name's Christina Kohler-Colucci. I'm the head of business advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. I have been 17 years working in the Chinese market, based out of Shanghai. And my focus for those 17 years has been on helping 100% foreign investors looking to get into the Chinese market. We also have our head office that's based in Hong Kong, which I tend to forget to mention. That's run by my brother because we are a family-owned business, and we help companies go into the Hong Kong market as well. We have a variety of methodologies that we use to provide transparency to our clients. We have the China Roadmap methodology, the China Incorporation Blueprint, and the China Profit Accelerator. And new coming into our methodologies is also the 8 Ways to Succeed in China, which just highlights the journey for companies that are really looking to gain traction in the Chinese market and have entities in China. So we'll be hosting a webinar on that topic shortly as well. So let's get cracking on today's presentation, which is how to review your China business performance. Guys, I'm not coming up with anything that is going to be mind-blowing today. What I hope I'm going to be able to give you is just an ordered structure to how you should be evaluating your business in China. Again, I'm not planning to blow your minds on this content. This is all things that companies should be doing in their home jurisdiction, in other subsidiaries that they've opened up in other jurisdictions. Again, the content is not mind-blowing, okay? This is just a structured way, which is structured in my mind, to be honest, in terms of how I evaluate my own business and how I'm trying to help my clients evaluate their businesses once they've been in the market for a certain period of time. Evaluations of your business and doing reviews on your business performance should be happening consistently throughout your journey in China. And this is where I see a lot of, especially the entrepreneurs, they forget to do this because somehow they're tied up too much into the business and they can't take 2 steps back to then evaluate the business. So I really want this webinar, particularly for entrepreneurs that are going into the Chinese market, and that's the sole jurisdiction that they're in, to really have this as a procedure list on how to review their business, take those 2 steps back and have an overview picture on how to cut costs, on how to look at the products and service and evaluate them, etc. So it's going to just be a very structured format today, hopefully giving you an understanding of how to do that. So let's start off with the main question, right? Why is it vital to review the progress of your business in China, right? Well, when I was developing my program about the 8 ways to succeed in China, or the 8 steps to succeed in China, I realized that at every single step, you need to assess your company. You need to know, where are you and where do you want to go? What are your goals and your objectives, right? And whether you do that every 6 months, whether you do that on an annual basis when you're doing your budget reviews, that's up to you. That's an internal decision. But again, with COVID, something that really was put into my brain was, you know, in moments of crisis, you need to be able to react very quickly with your organization. And I already had a structure in place to help me review my business, which is this structure that I'm going to be showing you today, and realize that I've got to assess it. I need to know where I am today, right? We've got a crisis. Where do I want to be in 6 months? What can I do to get our company there? Okay. Does that mean letting go of staff? Does that mean pivoting the business? Does that mean putting my focus on something else, right? You've got to, as a business owner, you've got to step back. As a general manager, you've got to have that ability to step back and have that view over your company. So reviewing your progress will be particularly useful if you feel like, you know, if you feel uncertain that your business is doing well, if you're unsure if you're getting the most out of your business. If you end up being in a crisis like COVID and you've got to evaluate where are you going to go into, what business sectors are you going to move into, how are you going to pivot your organization. If your business plan may be out of date, now this is a big one for me because a lot of entrepreneurs, they might do a very beautiful business plan initially in order to attract investors, in order to be able to show their management team, you know, that they're going into the Chinese market, and then they never review it. You know, even when they do the budgets, they don't review the business plan, meaning they don't use it as a working document to update oneself. Sometimes I feel like I'm on a tape recorder because I place so much emphasis on business plans and budgets. But honestly, guys, COVID has really taught me that that's something you've got to utilize. I didn't utilize it as much as I do now today. And that's purely because of the whole COVID crisis and economic crisis, right? So you're uncertain about how well your business is performing. You're unsure if you're really gaining traction with the market opportunities that exist. If your business plan is out of date and needs to be updated. If your business is moving in a direction that is different from the original one that you had planned. So, you know, what happens in China is a lot is that opportunities just fall at your doorstep. As you start building your network, as you start meeting people. You know, the other day I got connected on WeChat and from somebody that's in a similar group that I'm in, and she just messaged me. I think she was actually trying to connect with everybody individually on that platform. And she messaged me and she said, you know, I'm doing XYZ. I don't really know what you do. What do you do? Can we have a quick call? And lo and behold, we had a conversation and things then move forward faster than you anticipated. And this was just with one simple connection on WeChat, right? So sometimes your business will move in directions that you hadn't planned for with the connections and the network that you're making. So again, opportunities will fall at your doorstep. You've got to react quickly. You've got to evaluate those opportunities. And maybe it's going to take your company in a different direction than you had originally planned. It might also be that the business may be becoming unwieldy or unresponsive to market demands. You might have had a fantastic first year on the market with the products that you were selling or the services you were selling. And then come the second year, you're not achieving the same revenue results. Why is that? Right? What is happening in the market? And so you've got to make these analyses. So you've got to set the direction, right? And a lot of this webinar will be basically checklists of what you should be asking yourself throughout your China journey. And again, you know, when I was developing these 8 steps to succeed in China, I realized that after every step, you've got to stop, assess. Where am I today? Where do I want to be? Ask yourself those questions. Other questions you can ask yourself is, what's my direction, right? Where do I want this company to go in the next 3 to 5 years? What is my intention for this company in China? What goals have you set? What are your revenue targets? If you're looking at cost control, what are your cost control targets? The other is, what are my markets now and in the future? You know, you might be going into the Chinese market only selling 2 out of the 10 products that you manufacture. So where do you see yourself? Do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years selling all 10 of those products in the Chinese market? Do all 10 of those products cater to the Chinese market? That's an evaluation that you have to look at, right? How are you competing in the market? What do your competitors tell you? Are you doing a competitor analysis often enough to know where you stand, what market share you own, and then how you want to move forward against your competitors as well, all right? In the service sector, it could be, do I want to add service lines? You know, we don't do audits, for example, because we need to have a Chinese partner and formulate a joint venture in order to be able to do audits in China. It is a question I have been asking myself, my brother, my father back in the day. Is that the direction we want to go into? Is it audits as well, and add that into our portfolio? The pros and cons are then evaluating, do we want to have a joint venture partner? Do we want to be relying on that joint venture partner? I mean, there's so many questions that follow, but that is a service line that we've been considering for 17 years. In the end, we haven't done it. Maybe some of you can guess why. We didn't want to go in the route of joint venture. And we also liked the idea of being separate, that you know, we do the bookkeepings for our clients and there's another set of eyes doing the audits. We liked that, as we thought that was a nice advantage for our clients as well, particularly those that were bigger in size. So other questions you might ask yourself is, how do I gain market advantage, right? If you're evaluating your competitors in the market, how can your business perform against those competitors, right? What are they doing that you're not doing? Why are they ahead of the game? All right, it could be financial resources, and then you're a little bit stuck. But even though you might not have those financial resources, You might have other resources that are advantageous that they don't have. For example, technical competence, facilities, finance, there might be so many other areas that you also have to evaluate. So that's why the next question is, what resources do I require to succeed, right? What skills do you need? What assets? What financing? What technical competence? What other forms of relationships do you need to develop in order to be able to succeed? And when you're doing this assessment, what I do very simply is I take a plain piece of paper. I work with pen and paper. I like to write things down, take notes, write bullet points. That's how I function, and how things become clear to me. I then put it nicely into Word documents for presentations, but that's how I work. So when I'm doing these assessments, I do take a pen and paper and I evaluate. I ask the question on paper, where am I today? What have I done to succeed so far? Where do I want to go and what do I need to move forward? And don't forget, as you're building up your team in China, don't forget to include those individuals in this assessment process, in this review process. You're developing departments, you're developing heads of departments. Those heads should be giving you insights into your business and how you should be moving forward, right? With their own personal experiences, with their past experiences, whatever it might be, right? And they might also then tell you, what further resources do you need? What skills do you need, right? Don't forget to listen to those individuals because they are key to your organization. You've also got to understand what business environment you're competing in, what external factors exist, right, that affect the business's ability. Is it the fact that you're a foreign investor that limits your ability to move forward in China? Is it the fact that you're a foreign investor that pushes your company forward in China, right? Is it because you've got products that are designed and made in UK that's pushing your company forward, or designed and made in US? Could be. It could also be that you're a foreign investor and you're just not getting ahead of the game compared to your Chinese competitors. You've got to evaluate that business environment, right? And then don't forget to have KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators, right? Because you need to evaluate how you're going to measure your success, right? So you're going to have goals. How are you going to measure that you're achieving those goals, right? What are the points of statistics, if you like? I don't know. It might be numbers. It might be a numbers measure. It might just be a skill set measure. There's such a big variety, right? But make sure that you have indicators to measure your success, all right? And that you're evaluating that success. My belief is, again, that you can't actually answer all of these questions yourself. And I say that from my own personal experience. And I say that because there was a period in my journey in China where I was fearful of giving too much information about the organization to my team members and to external parties. Just because in my startup phase, I've been burned one too many times. What I realized over time was that by not sharing my thoughts and not actually asking people for their guidance or their experiences or their thoughts, was the fact that I was limiting the organization from moving forward. So when you're evaluating all of these questions that you're asking yourself about where you are today and where you want to be, and what measures of success you're going to look at, don't forget to involve senior managers. Don't forget to involve other directors. Don't forget to include professional advisors. Don't forget to include mentors. Don't forget to include your peers. Friends have been key facilitators in giving me ideas on how to push my company forward. And whether that's a drink on a Friday night, looking at the view of the Shanghai Bund, whatever it might be, but my friends who are in completely different industries from me have been key influencers in the direction that I take the company. So ecosystem, developing an ecosystem, having mentors, having professional advisors, directors, senior managers, friends, peers, going to the chambers of commerce and just having open discussions about your experiences and what tips people might offer is invaluable in pushing your company forward. You're not going to give numbers and statistics about your company, but you're just going to say, listen, guys, you know, I didn't hit my revenue target thus far. I'm stuck. I don't know where to go. What would you do in my situation? Here's a little bit of the background story. You never know what comes out of people's mouths, and you never know what insight they're going to be giving you. Remember, you might all be in different industries and sectors in China, but many instances, the problems that you have are very similar, okay? That might be HR issues. It might be facilities issues. It might be how to acquire clients. Maybe you're not using the right technique or discussion points. And everybody can be invaluable to the direction you want to go into. So how are you going to assess your core activities? And like I said, everybody is in a different industry and sector. We've got people on here that are in the education sector, that are in cosmetics, health products. It's a whole wide variety of companies. We've got machinery. I'm service, okay? So how are you going to assess your core activities in relation to your own organization? Okay, so again, questions to ask yourself. How effectively are you matching your goods and services to your customers' needs? All right, I've been 17 years in the market. And what I have noticed, again, I'm service and I'm accounting. What I've noticed is that companies are starting to want to do things in-house from a financial perspective. Software systems are easier to purchase. They're bilingual. Many accountants, if you pay the right price, are fluent in English and are actual Western-minded accountants. It's just a matter of finding those right individuals. So what do they need? Well, in the end of the day, what we're seeing is that our clients need advisory. They need to have somebody to give an objective view on their organization, on their financial numbers, to give insight on how to push the company forward, whether that means more capital investment, whether that means cost control, whatever it might be, right? That's what we're seeing. That's the trend we're seeing. So what is the trend that you're seeing, right? Are the goods and the services that you are selling in the Chinese market matching the requirement that your customers in China need? Every jurisdiction is different, right? And China particularly so. So making sure you do a customer analysis, looking at market segmentation. These are continuous research that you should be developing to know what your customers want. Analyzing your products and services, which ones are failing and which ones are succeeding, okay? So in my case, when I'm developing my financial, my P&L, it's very detailed. I have in my revenue every service broken down. So I know exactly year to year what is increasing and what is going down. And what that means is that I then place focus on my marketing on things that are succeeding and less so on things that are failing. Okay, because I want to spend my marketing dollars on where I can see the trend is going, and that's going to gain traction and gain me new clientele. Okay, so evaluating your product list, evaluating the services that you have, that's a numbers game, right? What are people buying? Where's the interest? If you're doing brand strategies, who's talking about what products online, right? Where's the noise in relation to the products and the services that you're developing? Okay, like this, again, it helps you to push forward. What it's done for me, it's basically told us we can eliminate some services that are not profitable and add new services where I see again the traction developing. Okay. The next is what's really behind the problems of a product or a service. So it's actually evaluating the journey of your product and your service. One thing that we've noticed since January, because things have picked up tremendously in relation to market entry into China, is our onboarding process. We've gotten a little bit slack on that. We're a bit slow on that. So again, we've analyzed it. We've seen problems. We noticed a couple of problems with two clients at the beginning of the year. We had to pivot. We had team meetings to discuss where we could improve, and we've done that. Okay. So knowing that journey and knowing where the problems lie. Is it in pricing? Is it in marketing? Is it in sales? Is it in onboarding? Is it an after sales service, design, technical service, whatever it might be? Look at your systems, your operational systems, and do reviews, okay? And evaluate quickly, all right? Because you don't want things to worsen, right? I want the onboarding process to be magnificent for my clients so that they stay with me long term, right? I don't want the onboarding process to be hell, and then after 2 months, they're like, you guys are rubbish, right? So you've got to know where you're slacking, all right, and where the real problems lie, and evaluating that. And don't be shy to raise your voice. And you've got to train your team members, the heads of your departments, to do the same. Raise their voice the minute that they see something, right? If from the sales to the customer service, things are not well, then that's an issue right there. That's a link in the chain that's broken. And you've got to fix that as soon as possible. And if that's coming from your customer sales people to say, listen, the bridge between sales and customer service is horrible, you got to fix that quickly, okay? Another aspect that we need to evaluate is in relation, oh, sorry, let me go back. The next is, are you reviewing costs frequently? So again, this is something that's absolutely critical. Are you reviewing your costs, your overheads, your asset costs, your material costs, your general administration costs often enough? I certainly didn't do that in the past, particularly in relation to headcount. I did not make evaluations. I trusted team members to say when we needed to add people. We never let go of people, but we were more than happy to add people. And at a certain point, I was noticing that my headcount cost was over and beyond what we had projected. And I had to react very quickly on that. So you've got to make that evaluation when you're looking at your direct costs, your overheads, your assets. Is there any way that you can implement cost control functions, and who is going to implement that for you? Okay. Is that going to be your finance team? Is it going to be department heads? Who is actually going to do that work for you? Okay. Because you've got to negotiate with everybody in your department in relation to that. Okay. Nobody wants to cut costs. It's the most unglamorous part of doing a business review. But it's a necessity. And COVID has taught us that it's a necessity to control our costs. Answering these questions will give you the foundation on how to improve performance and profitability within your organization, okay? And on Wednesday's webinar, I'm going to be providing tips on how to analyze your financials in relation to your Chinese company. So if that's something that you are keen on looking at, please sign up for that presentation. You've got to assess your business efficiency. And in China, I find that this is absolutely critical because China is a very fast-paced environment. And if your business operations are not efficient, you might lose out on bids, you might lose out on negotiations, you might lose out on gaining staff, whatever it might be. So you've got to assess your business efficiency. And I've listed here, I believe it was 4 areas in relation to how to make things more efficient. So the first is in relation to the premises of your organization, okay? COVID has taught me that people can work remotely. In China, you are required to have a registered office address. If you have a team of 20 people, it does not mean you have to have an office of 20 people. You can also say that all your salespeople can work remotely from home, because in theory, they should be traveling and meeting people. They should be on planes, trains, in cars, whatever it might be. So you might have the flexibility to downsize your premises. All right. Evaluate your lease agreements. What are your long-term commitments to the properties that you own? All right. What are the terms and conditions of breaching those lease agreements? All right. Evaluate your location. What are the advantages and disadvantages of your current location? If you are in the CBD area and you're realizing you've done that for image purposes, but actually you're realizing that because of COVID, people are no longer coming to your office place, nobody really knows the image of your location, then maybe you can move to the suburbs of Shanghai. For example, you will have the repercussion on this of changing your tax district that you then have to evaluate, okay? But evaluate where you are today. Do you have to be in such an expensive area? Does your facility or your premise give you the room to grow or the flexibility to cut back if necessary? And this is why I ask a lot of startups in China, especially in the incorporation phase, to go to business centers, because you have this flexibility to grow and then to cut back, right? Obviously based on availability by the business center, but it gives you this option. If you're planning on incorporating a school in China, you don't have that flexibility. But with a school, finding a premise that gives you the room to grow and potentially the room to cut back is critical. What I've seen with a lot of international schools in Shanghai is that they were growing, but as we've seen in the Chinese market, most foreigners due to COVID are no longer back in China. Class sizes are smaller and could almost be consolidated, okay? So think about those options when you're looking at those premises. When you move premises and you've decided to relocate, obviously you can't relocate to another city. You have to stay within the city that you've incorporated your company in. What will be the cost of relocation, right? What will be the long-term cost and savings, improvements in efficiency, and then obviously don't forget the tax issues you might find arise in relation to moving from district to district, all right? The next one is facilities, and this is particularly important in relation to companies that are manufacturing. So if you manufacture products, how modern is your equipment, right? Do you need to update your equipment? If production has been reduced, do you need to sell off equipment? What is the capacity of your current facility compared to existing demand and forecasted demand? Okay, do you need to outsource? Now, this is something that I want to give a case study on because I find this extremely critical. I had a client many years ago. I can't even tell you what date. Oh, well, I can. It was around the expo period, so 2010. And they were incorporating their company and they needed warehouse facility. They visited 5 or 6 different logistics providers, freight forwarders, and I can't even tell you how many warehousing facilities because they wanted to see with their own eyes. They had specific specifications. They needed warehouse facilities that were air conditioned. Their products were highly fragile and had to be in a temperature controlled room. In the end, they chose a logistics company. First shipment arrives. They had already checked the warehouse facility. So what they had imagined is where their products were going. In the end, did not happen because the logistics provider ran out of facilities, space, and had to subcontract, which was written in the contract, to another provider, forgetting the clear specifications that were required, which was air conditioning units or temperature controlled units. The entire shipment, company produces glass, the glass cracked in almost every box and every container, okay? Now, I'm saying it from the perspective of the client. From the perspective of the logistics company, they ran out of facility space and they had to subcontract. Is this something that's going to happen with you? If you run out of facility space, how will you expand? Will you have another space to rent? Will you subcontract? Will you grow in the existing space you are? These are all things you've got to evaluate. And sometimes demand grows faster in China than expected. So you've got to pivot very quickly when things like that happen. If you're doing any forms of improvement, if you've been in your factory space for 10 years, right? You can't tell me that things don't need to be improved, whether it's bathroom renovations, office renovations, factory space renovations, equipment needs to be more modern, whatever it might be. Can you fund that? Do you have the financial resources to fund that? And how do you compare yourself against your competition in this regard, right? What are your competitors doing? How are they growing? Again, that all comes down with a competitor analysis, right? You can even do a location study of your competitors to see where are they expanding to? Are they expanding? Where are they moving to? Information technology. This is fundamental, especially with COVID, right? Everything is done now virtually, online, and we all have to be digitalized. So, and then we have to follow data security protection regulations. So when you're looking at your IT, and IT, trust me guys, when you're looking, for example, just simply at ERP systems or accounting software systems, this is all not cheap. What management information and other IT systems do you have now, and what do you need in the future to improve, right? Will these systems cater for an expansion? If you have a software system and actually in the end you're realizing you're not using it, you break that contract. What do you do with a software system if you don't need it, right? Evaluating the technology behind your organization. And we just did this updated exercise as well internally, was I listed out every single software system I utilize. Everything when I'm doing marketing, BD, all the way down to operations. And my list has grown actually compared to 2 years ago, because there's just more things out there that are useful and cater to our organization. So when you're making this assets list in relation to IT, really start from your website. Where's your website hosted? That's an IT platform. Where are your emails hosted? How are you doing your marketing? What marketing platforms are you utilizing? If you're selling into China, what e-commerce platforms are you on? And who's got the usernames and passwords to all of these functions and all of these back-end data type items? You have to make that analysis. And obviously, over the years, this expands and you've got to have an updated list on who has access to that. And hopefully it's more than one person in case something happens, right? It's also then evaluating the people and the skills. Do you have the right people to achieve your objectives? Last Friday, I sent out an email about how I was getting a lot of inquiries from existing companies in China looking to move their in-house accounting functions and outsource them, or moving part of it to an outsourced function because they were just not happy with the accounting team in-house. They just felt that the communication wasn't there. They had doubts about whether those people were doing the right things, and they just needed to have external guidance. Finance is critical in your organization. If you can't communicate with your accountant, how do you expect to move forward? How do you expect to have your right wingman be able to assist you and move your company in the right direction? Okay. And this is just one person I'm talking about in a finance team. You have sales, you might have marketing, you might have production, IT, the list goes on, right? You're going to have various departments within your organization and people catering to different things. Do you have the right people to achieve the objectives in those departments? Do you yourself know what is expected of them? If you're going through the recruitment process, are you evaluating what you actually specifically need in terms of skill set, right? As you get bigger, do you operate a training and development plan, right? So, if somebody doesn't have a skill set, do you decide, let's fire and terminate, or do you decide, no, let's provide training so they can improve? Two different directions you can go into, right? Do you pay as well as the competition? That's a fascinating question. Something that I learned too late in my last organization, where I realized I had too many people was paying way too much compared to my competitors. I just didn't have the appropriate efficiency to run my accounting team. And obviously things have changed since then. But do you pay more than market rate and therefore you have less turnover? Do you pay more than market rate, but you still have high turnover? Are you paying the right salaries for the people that are in your organization based on the skill set that they have against your competitors? China is renowned for having high staff turnover. Do you have high staff turnover? And if you don't want to have high staff turnover, how are you going to eliminate that, right? Is it going to be through career progressions, training and development plans, whatever it might be? Is it going to be because you pay higher salary rates? That's a, that's a decision you have to make whether you want to go in that direction. But these are all questions you should be raising. And you might have heads of departments have various opinions on this, right? But you need to know what your competitors are charging, how your competitors are operating, and know if you're paying the right rates for that. Professional skills. Do you have the right management team in place to help you grow your organization? I got a question the other day from somebody who asked me, I forget where they were based in. They were based in an Anglo-Saxon country, and they were saying, I've got my own business, and I actually have a Chinese partner who is on board predominantly to help me grow the Chinese market. I'm not seeing the results. Do I really need to have a Chinese partner in place? My answer is the following. When you're going into China, you can't do it alone. You're going to need an ecosystem of people to help you, okay? It comes down to in which areas do you need help in? And do you need those people to be sitting next to you, being your right wing, left wing, and guiding you? So that means they're in the management. Will they be external parties, right? So you can say to yourself, you will do all the marketing and branding in-house. I don't need a media agency. Or you can say, I won't have anybody in-house. I'm going to have a media agency do it. And they're the experts. They're going to bring me the value, okay? Sometimes you need both. You need someone in-house taking care of the external party, all right? But you've got to make sure that you've got the right professional skills. On this slide, the previous slide, it's very much looking at the operative perspective. Do you have the right operations people to hit your targets and your objectives? Now we're looking at heads of departments, managers. Do you have the right skill set to bring your company forward? People are critical to your China growth, and I can't emphasize that more. I'm a Westerner in China. I'm not a local. Let's face facts. I will never know more than Sally, who's my head of client services. Okay, I just won't. She's been educated in China. She is Chinese. She knows how things work in the tax system better than I ever will. All right. And I have to admit that I need her in order to be able to process and grow my organization. All right. You need to know who those key people are to grow your organization and how are you retaining them? All right. What are your incentive plans to keep them on board, to inspire and motivate them to grow your business? Okay. Now, the next step is reviewing your financials. Okay. And like I said, I'm going to go into much bigger detail on this on Wednesday's session, but I just wanted to provide an overview here on the key areas that you should be looking at when reviewing your company. And I don't think you should be reviewing your financials every 6 months. I think you should be reviewing them frequently. I mean, for me, there are certain things that I review weekly. There are certain things I review monthly. Okay. And then there's certain things I review at a grander scale, maybe every 6 months. All right. Cash flow, I look at that weekly. Some people might even look at that daily. Okay. How much is in your bank balance? Do you know what is in your bank account? Do you know how much money is in your bank account? Do you know what approvals you're making for payments? Do you know when you get receipts of payment? Are you clear on what are your recurring monthly payments that you have to make, like rent, salaries, right? The one-offs every so often that you have to do. Right now, we're in the peak season of audits, right? Everyone's got to pay an audit fee either last month, this month, or next month. All right. And sometimes those are big amounts. Do you have that money available to you? So analyzing your bank balance and knowing what your cash flow status is critical to your organization. And like I said, I do that weekly. You might want to do that daily. I would not do that monthly. I would do that more often. Looking at your working capital, right, which is the registered capital that you put into your organization, right? Have your requirements changed? Do you need more financing? Do you need more capital? How are you going to get that capital? When money is starting to run out, do you have a plan of money that's going to come into the account so that you can pay for your expenses? There are a lot of options available. Do you know what those options are? Okay. You don't necessarily have to increase your registered capital to get funding, but you have to know what options are available to you to be able to finance your own company, right? Registered capital is something where most companies do not calculate enough of it. And one of our tools that we have found is that we ask the client predominantly, let's have some trigger points, right? So let's say you've invested 500,000 US dollar. That's very high. Most companies have smaller amounts, but I'm just making it easier for the example. Let's say you've invested 500,000 US dollar. You've decided to put all of that money in one shot. It's sitting in the account. We're going to make trigger points, right? When you're down to 400,000 left, when you're down to 300,000 left, when you're down to 200,000 left. And in those trigger points, we're going to have phone calls to discuss what are your options. We keep going, or do we have to start thinking about getting more cash in? How are we going to get more cash in? Are clients about to pay? Do you need more cash from the head office, right? These are all questions we ask at those trigger points, okay? Could be that the client just says, no, we continue as is, because we still got a lot left over. I'm not worried, okay? But it's good to have those conversations so that registered capital is not something that you forget. It's something that always comes to front of mind at those trigger points. The next is cost base, right? You've got to keep your costs constant. It's something that you've got to look at. You need to know who's approving all payments. That's usually how you're going to limit your costs, right? Who is approving payments? Do heads of departments get authority if it's under a certain amount, so they don't need, for example, the line manager's approvals? You've got to make sure that costs are covered in your sale price, and you've got to make sure that you're keeping your costs under control, all right? Especially the costs that are fixed, rent. You know, if you're not growing your headcount, salaries is going to be fixed, right? The only thing that might vary in the salary component is the social insurance rate. If you're looking to borrow and get loans, where are you going to get loans from? Is it going to be the foreign debt loan? Is it going to be a loan from a bank? Are you going to get more investors involved? What are you going to do? All right. In terms of growth, do you have plans in place to adapt your financing to accommodate your growth strategy? Okay. I remember back in the day, I had a client actually who won a bid that literally they didn't expect to win, and they were going to generate a bottom line profit of over $1 million US. And they didn't want to pay, at that time, the tax rate was 25%. They didn't want to pay the profits tax of 25%. And they were in a rush to strategize how they were going to get that money out of China prior to the profits tax declarations. That's poor planning. They should have had those profit repatriation strategies in place, you know, at the startup phase of their organization, so that it wouldn't have been so obvious to the tax bureau why they were trying to get that money out, right? And it did cause problems for them. So a portion did have to stay, and a portion was able to be repatriated, but not as much as they wanted. So planning, the whole planning aspect for growth needs to also be anticipated and done. Conducting a competitor analysis, and this is something that I've mentioned throughout today's presentation. I do competitor analyses probably every 2 years. Again, I'm in the service sector, and I'm pretty much aware of what most of my competitors are doing. And so, yeah, I do it every 2 years. but conducting a competitor analysis is critical, right? You need to know who your competitors are, the locals and the foreigners. You need to know what they offer. What products are they offering? What services are they offering? How are they packaging those service offerings? What are their fee structures looking like, right? How are they pricing their products? Okay, you've got to know all of this. If they're selling to middlemen, how are they selling to middlemen, and what price points are they selling to those middlemen, those distributors, for example, or licensors, or whomever, okay? You've got to ask these questions. You also have got to ask what the profile and numbers of their customers are compared to yours. So it's not just a matter of looking at your competitors at face value and just looking at their organization, but also looking at their customers. What are their customers looking like? So it's actually doing a competitor customer analysis, if you wish, to know what are the differences there. Are they catering to another or different type of customer? Okay. How are they acquiring them? How are they approaching them? You've got to look at your customer's competitive advantages and disadvantages compared to yours. You know, we were looking at it from a manufacturing perspective, facilities perspective. Do they have better equipment than you? Is the quality of their products, are they better than yours? Why are they better than yours? Is the engineering behind the products better than yours? Okay, you've got to look at all of those. Then you've got to look at the reaction to your entry into the market, right? Or any product or price changes that might be made, and doing an analysis of that, right? So if you're bringing a new product into the market, are you doing a product analysis, focus group studies? Are you looking at the packaging of your product? Are you looking, if you change or increase pricing, how that might impact you? Are you doing like an economic analysis on that prior to actually implementing that? Okay, these are all really critical functions you have to look at. You will probably find it also invaluable to do a SWOT analysis. So what we normally do in-house is a box, and 4 boxes, basically. One box says strength, one says weakness, one says opportunity, and one says threats. And we do an evaluation, right? Doing a SWOT analysis on yourself, but doing it also on your competitors might give you a very nice comparison on what their advantages and disadvantages are and what are yours, and how you can then improve yourself in the market. So there are 3 main ways to find out more about your competitors, okay? Because this is something, again, maybe you don't necessarily want to pay a market research provider to do for you, okay? So first is, what do your competitors say about themselves, right? What does the sales literature look like? What are their advertisements look like? When they are exhibiting, are you going to their trade booths to see how they are exhibiting? What documents they are showing on their booth, right? Who is visiting their booth? Have you looked at their websites and how that might differentiate from yourself? Have you looked at media outlets, right? PR releases. Again, invaluable. What are other people saying about them? What are your salespeople saying about them, right? Again, it's about utilizing your team to know insider information. So what are your salespeople saying about your competitors? What are your customers saying? Not that you necessarily want to go up to your customers and say, hey, you know, what do you think of this competitor? But if they are planning on leaving you, having that discussion, saying, where are you moving to? Why are you moving to them? Okay. It's about local directories, looking at what are people saying in those local directories? It's about the internet, just general search functions, right? What are people saying on the internet about them, in the newspapers, analyst reports, okay? And then obviously reaching out to market research companies to do background checks or due diligence checks on them. And then obviously, last but not least, you can obviously commission a market research report on your competitors, right? And you might have a detailed list of what you specifically want to research on that, okay? Then doing a customer and market analysis. Okay, this is the last point that I want to go through with you guys today. It's revisiting your market. So when you were doing your market entry into China, you were obviously looking at the market as a whole, okay? You were also looking at your customer target group as a whole. But this changes, and especially in such a dynamic market like China, okay? There will be changes in your market. You will find new and emerging services. You might find that the needs of your customers change. You might find that the profile of your customers changing. Maybe it's going to a younger group. It might be going to an older group, okay? There might be external factors like COVID, new technology that's being imported, just generally economic crises, right? And then there might be changes in the competitive activity, right? Are there more competitors that are going into the Chinese market than you anticipated? Are there more local providers coming into the picture? Okay, you've got to revisit that. Now, one of the things that I forget to do most of the time, but probably because I speak to my clients regularly and often enough that I don't really do it, but asking your customers for feedback on your business performance will help to identify where improvements can be made to your products and services, okay? You need to get customer feedback, okay? And if it's negative, don't take it personally. Just know that's where improvement has to be made, okay? And you've got to make sure that in the next phase of your business, you are planning your finances and resourcing carefully at all times, okay? I always say that finances and time spent are critical to the growth of your organization in China, okay? You need to know where you're spending your money, and you need to know how much time resources you're placing in your organization. You have to use your review to redefine your business goals, okay? This should not just be a exercise in, just an exercise. This is what a lot of companies do, right? Or entrepreneurs, they create business plans, but they never really use them as working documents. I don't want you to do a review and spend time on doing a review if ultimately you are not executing on that review, okay? Like I said, there are 3 questions you need to ask yourself. Where is the business now? Where is it going? And how am I going to get it there, okay? And sometimes I ask people, especially if they're startups in China, to not project so far out, okay? But to say, right, we're in April right now. Where do I see this business going by the end of the year? How am I going to get it there? Okay, that review should tell you how you are going to get it there, because you're going to find the problems. You're going to pinpoint solutions to those problems, and you're going to fix those solutions between April and December to make sure you're hitting your targets. All right. But whenever you are moving to the next stage of your business development, you should be asking yourself, where is the business now? Where is it going? And how is it going to get there? Okay, what improvements have to be made? There is no one company that is perfect. There's always going to be improvements that can be made, okay? Whether that's in the financial area, whether that's in the people area, whether that's in the product and services area, whatever. There's always going to be improvements that can be made. So often businesses are able to work out where they want to go, but they don't drop a roadmap of how to get there. Okay, and if this happens, a business will lack the direction needed to turn even carefully laid out plans into reality, right? I created the China roadmap methodology in order to be able to give people something to look at to know how they were going to move their business forward. But you have to execute that, okay? You might have an outline of where you want to bring your company, but you've got to know how to execute that into a reality. At the end of any review process, make sure you've got your working plans available, right? I've got my sheet of paper with my to-dos and my action points, and set a timetable, all right? You've got to achieve certain things by a certain timeline, and it has to be realistic. We all know that China is efficient and progresses at an extremely rapid pace, but you've got to set realistic timetables for your team, for yourself, so that it can come into reality. The worst thing that happens if you rush that timetable and you can't cross off those bullet points because you haven't accomplished them, you go into a downward spiral and you just get lost in terms of how to be able to recuperate yourself and get out of the mess, right? So make sure you have, you know, not 10 action plans that you've got to implement, but maybe 3 to 4 action plans that are high priority. You set a timetable for those. If we're looking April to December, you might want to achieve one of those action plans every 2 to 3 months in order to be able to hit it so that you can start fresh in 2022, okay? Remember, China is dynamic, okay? It is extremely dynamic. Regular reviews, updates, and revisions have to be maintained. Consistency is key in China. And this is where, obviously, in your startup phase, it's going to be tough because you're not going to have department heads. You're going to be a small organization where actually probably all the people you hire initially will be multitasking, doing multiple functions, right? And you might be doing a good portion of all of those functions. But at some point, you as a leader need to step back and have an overview of your organization to make sure you're on the right path and to make sure that you can pivot and improve your organization, okay? Many of the failures in China from companies happens because the leaders do not take a step back and have a bird's eye view onto their organization, knowing how to move forward, all right? So please do keep this all in mind, that you do, as a leader, have to have that bird's eye view on your organization. And you have to have the time involved to be able to do it. If you feel like you do not have the time to have that overview, then hire skilled consultants to be able to offer that to you, all right? Or appoint non-executive directors who are impartial to have that overview and do that overview for you. Or work with a management consulting firm to do internal reviews and checks on your organization, right? You will have management consultants that you can hire or companies that you can hire that will go in and look at all aspects of your business and do a review on all aspects of your business. So either you hire someone in-house, you get a non-executive director to do that for you, or you get a management consulting firm to come in and to review all those aspects, okay? You might find management consulting firms might only do reviews, I don't know, in products and services. For example, at Woodburn, we do the reviews from a financial perspective only. So you might find management consultants that do it in different areas. Might be difficult to find one that does it in all areas. So models for your strategic analysis. I was mentioning earlier the SWOT analysis, which has been extremely helpful for us. And I see that it is helpful for a lot of our clients, and I just want to highlight it here, okay? The SWOT analysis is one of the most popular tools out there to analyze your business, looking at the strengths and weaknesses of your organization and looking at the opportunities and threats related to your business, okay? So opportunities might be new bids for projects, threats might be more and more competitors in the market. Your strength might be your people, your weakness might be that you don't have enough operational processes in place to streamline your organization, okay? But doing that analysis work on strengths of your organization, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats is vital. And making sure that whoever is in your team at this point in time, if you're a small organization with 3 or 4 people, involve everyone in doing this exercise. Look at their opinions on what the company's strengths and weaknesses are. It's basically getting it from a different point of view, right? Even your secretary or your personal assistant will have her or his own point of view on the strengths and weaknesses of your company and the opportunities and threats that exist, okay? Based on the information she has and the daily work that she's doing. So even if you're a small organization, get everybody involved in this activity to know how you can move forward with your company, all right? There are many more other analyses tools out there. I just find SWOT analysis very straightforward and something that your Chinese team can understand and implement as well and participate in as well, all right? So like I said, it's the SWOT analysis is basically a tool used in the review process to help you understand, again, your strengths, your weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats that exist for your organization. Breaking down your strategic review, right? just areas you need to look at. So this is to sum up today's presentation. Again, a very structured, this is not mind-blowing exercise, but it's just a structured exercise to know how you should review your company. One is looking at the market performance and the direction of your organization. The other is looking at the products and services and analyzing that. What is doing well? What is not doing well? What should be added in? What do the customers want? What do the customers need? Looking at operational matters, right? By that, I mean any form of operational systems, technologies that are used, system processes, methods, supply chain, production, whatever, okay? Looking at the internal efficiencies of your operations. Looking at your financial matters, right? I mean, just by looking at them, things are going to change. But you've got to know where you're standing from a financial perspective. Do you need more investors? Do you need more capital? How much sales are you generating? Are you able to implement cost control? What does your cash flow look like, etc. Looking at your organization and your people, looking overall at the structure of your organization and the people that are not only employed by your company, but also the ecosystem that you've developed. Those are individuals, those are people that are helping you to grow your organization. So it's not just the structures, the people, it's also all the third parties that you might be contracting with to help you grow your company. What are the next steps after this? Well, basically the 5 steps will give you a clear indication of any issues, right? It's a matter of you then doing something with those issues that you see, right? Problems need to be solved, and they need to be solved early on. Hopefully, you will gain insight into what you're strong at, which should give you a confidence level and boost you, but it should also then highlight what you're weak at, okay? It's going to give you the opportunity to look at areas of your business that need attention, all right? So that you can move forward and that you can then grow, all right? What is the one goal everybody on this webinar has, including myself? It's to grow in China. We want to double revenue. We want to do X, Y, Z. We all have goals of growth, okay? The actual goal number will differentiate, but we all have the same goal to grow. And it's just knowing how to improve your organization to make sure you hit those goals. All right. Once you've isolated the best route for moving forward, make sure you execute that. Okay. No point in creating a beautiful business plan and not executing on that business plan. Okay. And making sure that you monitor it. And again, I know for small organizations where you are the leader of that organization, you are caught up in the running of the company. You need moments every single month to take that step back and have that bird's eye view on your organization. So that's the end of today's presentation, guys. We have time for 20 minutes of Q&A. If you do have any questions, please start typing them in. I would love to hear what your biggest takeaway from today was. If you don't have questions, but you want to talk one-to-one, then you can book a call with me. I'm going to be posting or pasting, copy and pasting all of this into the chat box shortly. So just bear with me. But in the meantime, if you do have questions, go ahead and ask them. All right. Are there any questions that you have? Nothing has popped in thus far. If you guys do have questions, I'll stay on for the next 5 to 10 minutes. In the meantime, I'm just going to copy and paste this into the chat box so everybody has it. You should all have my details now. Still no questions that have popped in. Guys, I know this all wasn't mind-blowing. I wasn't expecting to have too many questions because it was very structured in terms of what to look at. Like I said, I'll stay on for the next 5 to 10 minutes. So if you do want to type away, please do. Just a reminder of the upcoming webinars in this series. So we've got tomorrow a webinar on, for those of you that have existing entities in China, what you need to know about the foreign investment law and what updates you have to make within your organization. On Wednesday, I will be looking at how to analyze your financial management reports in China. On Thursday, we've got an interactive session, basically a Q&A with Manfred Jürgen, who's the GM of a production facility in Tianjin, not Tianjin, in Taicang, sorry. And we're going to be talking about the clashes that happen between the China subsidiary and the head offices and how this can limit growth in China. And then on Friday, I'm going to be just finishing off on the 10 reasons why some businesses are not successful in the Chinese market. So if you want to hit any of those, just subscribe on our website, woodburnglobal.com/events. I'm going to type that in right now. And you can subscribe directly. In the meantime, I want to thank everybody for joining us. It's been a great pleasure. I hope to see you in further webinars this week. And like I said, I'll stay on for another 5 minutes or so in case any questions do pop in. I wish you all a very pleasant evening, afternoon. Take care and goodbye.